Use, abuse, addiction. Is there a difference there?
I think majority of us do not get to know when we have moved from the use to abuse, mostly because it's usually something progressive. Most of the time it's because there's an underlying issue that hasn't been resolved.
We've seen people inhaling toilets, the ammonium in toilet. We've seen people inhaling gums. Yes.
Wait.
Exhausted gum.
Who is this sniffing to it?
Yes, they sniff, people sniff all sorts of things.
It has always been glorified, as Dr. Keleti said.
Yeah.
The negative consequences are never advertised. There's nobody shooting a music video with an addict, in the music video. So
Maybe deliberately.
that has always been the case.
If some portion of the Bible says use alcohol, just a little alcohol for your belly, for your stomach, right? But still, when people preach, they preach like alcohol is a totally big sin and a no-no in religion. Tell an addict, tell them that there is a possibility that they are going to relapse, and that's okay. Yes, that is okay. You're going
Welcome to the Med Squad podcast. How are you doing? You know, sometimes you look at someone and the answer to that is uncertain. They look like they're fine on the outside, but there's some things that we do not see. And it's a topic that we tend to brush under the rug. It's a topic to do with substances. And before we get to that, I'd like to introduce you to the squad, the Med Squad. Okay, I'm the squad and they're the Med. So we'll introduce from my left.
I'm Dennis Mandere. I'm the therapist at Zuri Health.
Karibu sana.
Okay, my name is Dr. Kelechi Okoro, also known as the Health Entertainer. I'm a social media influencer and I talk about social topics like what we're about to talk about.
My name is Dr. Faith Rory, lead pharmacist, Zuri Health.
All right, welcome. So now, this is something that is often not acknowledged, especially in family settings and all that. So we're talking about substance use. Now, I think we need to get to the basics. What do we mean by substance use and how is it different from substance abuse or addiction? So use, abuse, addiction. Is there a difference there?
So to tackle this issue, you have to look at it from a spectrum perspective because it's a progression of a behavior. In the first instance is where an individual uses a substance. It could be a psychoactive substance in a positive light. For instance, it can be in a spiritual setting, it can be in a social setting, it can be something that promotes a health benefit that after taking the substance, it will be achieved. For instance, there is opioids that are used in terms of maybe taking care of pain. That's the first use.
Yeah.
Then the second step is where you have the casual use, which is we call it the low risk, where someone engages in using a substance, but then the effects are usually negligible in terms of their health and even the social aspect of it all.
Yeah.
Then we have harmful and the high risk, where someone engages in a substantive amount of a substance, intake of a substance, where it alters and has negative consequences on an individual, even the family and the community at large. This is where we have cases like DUI, where you're driving under the influence. Then the last aspect of it is where we bring about the addiction bit of it, where someone becomes dependent on the substance. This is where the high risk is mitigated in an individual to a point where it becomes habitual and it's so impulsive. So all the behaviors they engage in are directed towards taking that drug, acquiring and taking that.
So like they're actively seeking it out.
Yeah.
The substance that they're using.
So you see, it's a progression of a behavior. Yeah.
You wanted to add from your perspective?
Okay, so just a little to what is already said, and to simplify, substance use is, something like social use of alcohol just to get a little tipsy, just to, get yourself in the mood and be social, right?
Like in a wedding.
Yes, just to get yourself, in the mood. And then maybe for pain, you're using this substance like opioid, like you mentioned, but it's for a positive outcome, right? Yeah. And then abuse is excessive use of it. Yes. You use it excessively, you use it illegally, you use it without prescription, and then it's dangerous to your health, not just your health, the health of people around you,
Yeah.
and then to the society.
Okay. Now, I know most of us think we are in control of our everything, our faculties, it's a spectrum. So there's progression in the use of the substance. How are we able to know that we're progressed from the previous stage? Or is it something that creeps up on us and then at addiction we're stuck?
I think majority of us do not get to know when we have moved from the use to abuse, mostly because it's usually something progressive, and most of the time it's because there's an underlying issue that hasn't been resolved. So you're trying to there's a deeper issue that needs to be addressed. Most of the time when it's not addressed, you find yourself moving from the use to the abuse. It could be prescribed medication. You're using it for pain. You're using it to manage your depression, to manage, run away from your pain, from past trauma that you haven't dealt with. So for most individuals, it's very difficult to tell when. And sometimes it may be not you who picks it up, but someone else who tells you, you're taking too much alcohol and not able to report to work and do your everyday activities. So mostly the abuse is when your everyday activities and your productivity is immensely affected.
Obviously, when we mention abuse and addiction, in our heads is a picture that comes with it, an individual or a group of people, but there's also a gender that comes with that. Is there any skewing towards gender, or is this progression open to all? Like it can happen to anyone in terms of use to addiction?
Well, I think it can happen. It can actually happen to anyone, but in our society, I think men are more prone to addiction because of the toxic masculinity, because there's so much expectation from men. Men want to be macho. Men want to solve all the problems. They want to, even when a man is down, imagine someone, a father, right? He is down in his health. He has financial issues, but he wants to still appear like a man. In fact, in our society, people will say, "Are you not a man?" Like when you even try to say, "Oh,
You don't take alcohol.
Yeah, why?
Yeah.
are you not a man?" Or "I'm depressed." Like, are you not a man? Why are you depressed? Why are you behaving like a woman? So I think because of the burden of the society and expectations, not just from the society, from the self-inflicted expectations that men and pressure men put on themselves, they tend to, tilt towards using substances to cope.
Yeah. So why is it so hard to talk about it in the family setting or in even church settings? Like we're hiding it and kind of being hypocrites because we look down on it, call it a vice, we do all the stigma, but within our own context, in our own homes, churches, it's happening.
Okay, so because several reasons. The first one is fear, shame, guilt.
Yeah.
Okay, and especially in African setting where we feel like substance use is not African. And that's not quite true, because even before the modern substances came into existence or became popular, our forefathers have been using substances. Okay, so our forefathers have been using it, our fathers have been using it, but it's just that in recent times, because of the evolution of culture, evolution of trends, it's beginning to seem like it's on the rise. But because of the African setting, another thing is, it seems like you're bringing shame to your family name.
Yeah.
Okay. Even when it's happening in your family, you can't come out and say, "Oh, we have somebody who's abusing substance in my family." In the religious setting, it is termed a sin. Using substance is termed a sin, right?
Yeah.
Alcohol is a substance. In the Bible, some portion of the Bible says, use alcohol, just a little alcohol for your stomach, right? But still, when people preach, they preach like alcohol is a totally big sin and a no in religion. Okay, so that brings us back to religious values, morals, preaching.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why it's hard to talk about it in the African setting and the religious setting. And of course, shame and guilt, because it is not seen as the norm. you are ashamed to come and say, oh, I have a condition, whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression, whether it is even stress, overstimulation for neurodivergence, like people who have ADHD, they are prone to substance abuse and use and abuse because they are easily overstimulated. They easily need some dopamine boost. And one of the quickest ways for someone who has ADHD to get some dopamine is alcohol. Just a little bit of alcohol and you get the kick. So you know this, but you're scared to come to tell somebody that this is why I'm taking alcohol. Because most of the time, substance use is not about pleasure. It's about coping. It's about trying to be productive. It's about, bringing your best self. Okay, and it's just about something that you have known that works for you. And because of misinformation, lack of information, not enough information, gatekeeping of already existing information, the other healthier coping mechanisms. Exercise can increase your dopamine.
Good diet.
Good diet can do that. But, like instance, positive affirmation, just gingering yourself and saying, oh, I can do this. It can help. But because you think that it's alcohol that'll do that for you, you just go to alcohol. But you're ashamed to say that, to admit it to yourself and to admit it to your peer or to your family. Imagine going to tell your father that I'm down and the only thing that can make me, that can boost my energy right now is alcohol. So, there's this silent culture around substance use and also abuse. So I think that's why it's not really discussed in African and religious settings. And also there's
even touching on the shame, you might find a parent saying, for instance, if this is a son of mine who is addicted to a certain substance, for parents, I'll feel like I'm failing my son. Or my son is failing to a certain extent. So instead of rather a parent admitting my son is an addict, what will they say? They say, Efesi, stop hanging around those drug addicts. Without you acknowledging your son is one of them and your son is an addict.
And then another problem is spiritualizing it. Okay. In African setting, we talk about use and abuse as a spiritual problem rather than a mental health problem, a social problem. So instead of when you come to the hospital, when you come to to your pastor or the church and you talk about, substance use and abuse, they want to pray it away. So instead of talking about the real thing and treating the underlying cause, they just want to pray it away.
I think in addition to that, most people do not have a coping mechanism to deal with their issues in life. So what happens is, at least right now, there have been more areas where people know I can seek therapy, I can speak to a friend. However, the stigma that still comes with it is quite a lot, from, especially as she mentioned, the religious setting. And so while we are maybe like a Christian nation like Kenya, or even the Muslim community, people do not have where they can walk to and say, I am struggling with this and this. How can you help me? So you just have to run away and deal with yourself, and which is very difficult for most people. However, we also appreciate the fact that the therapists are coming in handy, to support, and we're seeing more and more, even people having subsidized, cost of therapy to help people like who are struggling with the drug abuse.
Now, you also interact closely with a lot of the substances. So there's also the over-the-counter kind of self-medication. So some of these people get away from or isolate themselves from any regulatory kind of environment and just they can go to a chemist or there's a difference between a pharmacy and a chemist. Yes. So they go and try and get prescriptions or they self-prescribe certain things. How are we able to nip it? I don't know if it's possible to nip it in the bud at that particular point.
So usually we call them controlled drugs. So these are drugs which have high chances of dependency and of abuse also. So with this kind of drugs, currently under the Kenyan regulation, they're usually under under the hands of the pharmacist, and they're the only ones who are allowed to dispense it, and even how they're handled, and even how we dispense it. We cannot dispense to you we can only dispense up to a certain amount. After that, you'll have to finish that, and then, you come back for the next refill. However, from my own experience, there's once where a patient, before they put regulations for codeine syrup. A patient would come in, they would order bottles. That time I was still I was an attaché somewhere, and the patient would order 6 bottles. And it never clicked to anyone why someone would order 6 bottles of a cough syrup. However, it's because they needed the codeine in the syrup.
Yeah.
That's it. So up to a certain point when the person who you're working with, they were like, okay, we need to actually inquire, where is this person taking this syrup? Are they reselling it? However, you realize that they're going to reconstitute it and make something more strong, mix it with other substances and, give it to their other friends. And we're seeing that happening even in global media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, she said something about, she was talking about controlled drugs. And usually when I discuss with pharmacists and maybe I go with the prescription for a patient, and I remind them that it's not only controlled drugs that people are abusing, because an addict is an addict. No matter if they can't find the substance that gives them the high, they will find replacement. We've seen people inhaling toilets, the ammonium in toilets. We've seen people inhaling gums. Yes. Exhaustic gum.
Who is this sniffing to?
Yes, people sniff all sorts of things. Someone who is looking for a high.
Wait, you haven't been introduced to the guys who are smoking crushed bones?
Exactly. People are smoking crushed bones.
Hey?
So, they're evolving and they will always adapt. Okay, so if they do not find that substance that gives them high, they'll find something else. So going back to the drugs, it's not just controlled drugs. I tell pharmacists, you're trying to control pentazocine, you're trying to control petidine and all those other tramadol and the rest of them. But people are getting high with something that is an antiemetic.
Yes.
People are getting high or slow from drugs that are supposed to be, like supplements, like the Bico, the drugs that are supposed to help you to, encourage you to eat. People are getting high and slow from different other medications. So I think that beyond just the control drugs, that's why data is important. Community pharmacy, the community pharmacy practice. It is from your practice, like what you noticed when those people were buying a lot of codeine. You can give a feedback to higher authorities and say, oh, there's been an increase in purchase of this particular drug. Why is somebody always buying an antiemetic, promethazine? Why is somebody always buying a particular drug? There's this one is actually to increase your appetite, but people use it to get slow. People use it to make themselves sleep. So when this purchase of these drugs over the counter is increasing, we're supposed to ask ourselves, why is this happening, and try to connect it with the social behaviors or the potentials of getting addicted or using these substances.
Okay. You're on the Med Squad podcast. As we try to avoid stigma, sniffing toilets, I'm trying not to be judgmental. We'll talk a bit about that and also look at some of the triggers in society. Sniffing toilets. We'll be back. Sniffing toilets.
Yes.
What?
Hey there! Welcome to Zuri Health HQ, where Africa's finest medical minds meet modern care. I'm Yafesi, your host on the Med Squad.
Care is personal. It's not just diagnosis, it's direction. From a cough to managing chronic illness, we listen and we lead.
Every symptom has a story. We listen, explain, and act together.
Nutrition is not just about food. It's fuel, it's healing, it's prevention. We help you eat with purpose, for energy, for recovery, and for lifelong health.
We are not just lab coats, we are detectives, and your blood speaks when we translate.
Your mental health is not a luxury. It's your health, period. Whether it's trauma, depression, anxiety, or even wanting to speak to someone, we are here for you.
At Zuri Health, collaboration is our strongest prescription. We connect expertise across Africa to deliver care that is smart, affordable, and people first.
This is the Med Squad. Real conversations, real health, real people. From your inbox to your bedside, we're with you.
Welcome back to the Med Squad podcast, where we're really finding out stuff. And I want to ask about bones because the image that came to mind was like after cremation. Are they sniffing human remains?
No, not cremation. They literally dig up a grave.
Yeah.
They take out the bones, crush them, then
and snip them.
That is almost, you know what, eh? Wow. So there was an experiment that was done on some chimpanzees. So where one was isolated and they had some water containing a substance, a drug, I've forgotten whether it was cocaine or something else. And because it was bored or whatever, it started taking a bit of that. Then it started demanding it. So progressively, it started demanding all that. But then they introduced a second chimpanzee, a companion. And they said the experiment showed that the chimpanzee lost interest in that. So is there a connection issue, isolation, a feeling of loneliness that contributes to addiction or accelerates the journey or the progress?
Okay, so yes, there's some correlation between isolation and, substance abuse, but it's not for everybody. There are some people who, when they're isolated, they use that time to do more productive things, research, introspect, and do some other things. But remember that different people have different thresholds, and just people are just different, and their brains, the brain chemicals are just wired differently.
Yeah.
Some people are more prone to depression than some other people. There are some people that would never get depressed, no matter what happens to them. In fact, some people, when they hear that somebody is depressed, they look at you like, this life that is sweet like this, what is depressing you? There are some people that even if they do not have money, they do not have anything to their name, they will never be depressed. But there are some people who every little trigger can just tip them to looking for something to cope with, right? So yes, there's a correlation. However, there's that individual, individual factor, and then also there's the, environmental factor. But just to wrap up that question, social connection is very important. Bonding is very important. If there's somebody, if you feel down and you have somebody to talk to, and you talk to that person makes you feel better, and the person is not an addict or a user, then you people will do something more productive and, get happy. But if you go out you're isolated and you're looking for, companionship, and then you go out to meet somebody or go to a community where they are users, what happens? So just to wrap up, yes, there's that, you have to consider the person as an individual. There's some people that even if you put cocaine in front of them, they would never take it. Even if you force them, even if they're in a party, they would never take it. But for someone else who has an underlying condition that makes them prone to risk-taking behaviors, or they're just looking for a void, to fill, they would try to fill it with, substance. Yes, social connection is very important. Bonding is very important. Companionship, good mental support is very important. And it could actually reduce the tendency for an individual to go into substance use.
So in addition to that, I would like to add, a human being is a social being. We are usually created to be social in a community setting. For instance, a human being needs the societal checks and balances not to engage in antisocial behavior. You can picture yourself having a burger in a public space versus you having a burger at home. You behave quite differently if you're being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
So an individual who is isolated might be more prone towards engaging in behavior that has maybe substance use disorder, that can bring about substance use disorders, such as drinking alone. Whereas initially, you remember the first time you took a drink in a social setting, with family, with friends, okay? Then it developed to you buying alcohol, taking it into the house, and drinking alone.
Yeah.
That's where the behavior becomes a bit problematic.
Now, it's good that you mentioned social, because this age we live in, everything is considered social. It's a social age, social revolution, rather. So I might, one of the things with being social beings as human beings, we get to choose or select the groups we want to attach ourselves to. But in social media, the groups come to you. People who live in, Estonia, someone who is in Russia, someone who is in Madagascar, someone in whichever country, and their behavior validates my behavior that I would otherwise hide from my local neighborhood or my local. So with regard to the digital age, are we seeing new patterns of addiction or substance use?
Yes, yes, we are. We're seeing a lot of, something that a substance that is being used in Nigeria, for example, is just for Nigerians, and all of a sudden now you're not using it you're not using it, recording and posting it, and someone in Kenya is like, oh,
today,
this is cool.
Today you've learned about crushed bones.
Exactly, and then tomorrow you might go and look for crushed bones to use now. Yeah. So now the world has become a global village, and it's all mobile phones and Wi-Fi. So you don't need to even go and research for some kind of harmful information. It's there staring at you. And then also the algorithms have been rigged.
Yeah.
Okay. The algorithms are being rigged. People are sponsoring harmful posts. And as long as you're on social media, you will see those posts. But then again, we all build our social media algorithms brick by ourselves. So if you see something that you don't, a content that you do not like, there's an option for you to turn it off. But if you see a content you don't like and you watch it, then you're telling the algorithm that it's okay to keep showing me this content. So that's what social media is doing. It's giving you content that you might have come across by mistake, but you watched it and then it's giving you more of it. It's exposing you to more harmful, trends from around your vicinity. And then so another problem is the pop culture, right? The pop culture is making things go crazy. Favorite influencers in their videos. There's this balloon they use in their videos. You see hip hop, Afro musicians in their videos. They have sexy girls, guys, in a party, and then there's a balloon that everybody is sniffing. Have you seen that before? We're not hippo. You haven't seen that before?
The balloon I saw was
elephant to Lingala.
Nkunku when he celebrates a gold.
Okay, so it's something that's getting popular in Nigeria, and we got it from foreign videos.
Yeah.
It's filled with nitrogen. I think it's nitrogen, and then you can just start inhaling it. So right now,
the laughing gas, nitrous oxide.
Nitrous oxide. I don't know. Please, I'm not sure. So what does it have? What does it concern? What?
Not helium. Helium is just for making your voice.
Okay, yeah. So, but it's filled with a substance that gets you high, right? And then now it's seen in musical videos, and now when you go to the club, they're actually selling balloons filled with those substances, and then people are just people are buying alcohol. You're no longer buying alcohol. People are now wrapping weed in the club. People are now casually in a party. Someone will come and ask you, "Do you want cocaine?" Like, I have never seen cocaine in my life. And then casually in parties, people are not asking you. You're not going to buy it.
Yeah.
Do you want some?
Free, yeah.
Just take it, right? So these musical videos, they're exposing some of these vices, and then young people are learning from them, okay? And then, but then again, your favorite musician is a musician. He sings. Why don't you take that part of it? Okay, I want to be a singer like my favorite musician. So why do you want to be a smoker or a sniffer or someone who uses? So yes, so it still boils down to personal choices, personal, control, because two people will watch the same video and one person will just enjoy the music and move forward, but someone else would decide that they want to take that habit that has been portrayed in in the video. Also, the kind of music out there, well, music, movies glorifying the use of substances, and then people are watching, and because they do not have a lot of self-control and self-awareness, they are picking those things up from what they see. Yeah.
I think you cannot underestimate the influence that social media has had on the culture around drug abuse. And that's why probably you're seeing even increased numbers of younger population getting involved in it. So it's actually upon to, as a society, for us to take it upon ourselves to put measures. While they may not be able to close social platforms and say, no, we cannot have this and this, but just to have a culture whereby we're training and, educating the younger people that, this is what you can pick from this whole, if it be the music, wherever they're socializing, when they're going out on parties, like, this is what we can pick. We can go have fun and you don't have to take the cocaine. And we can still be able to have fun out of it.
Yeah.
So it's just them being able to understand that, I can still live life without being, because they will never get to know the time when now it will be a burden to them and now they want to quit. But now they can't quit because it's a whole now medical scenario, because they'll need a lot of support for them to get past it.
Yeah. And then also social media, conventional media, they do not show you the consequences of those actions.
They show
You
you the
just
high.
see, they just show you they show you the high, the hype, but they do not show you the health hazards.
Yeah.
And then and sometimes human beings are not very transparent. It's just like when someone puts out a tweet and you realize that you've made a mistake. If you should be able to just take down that tweet, but because it's gotten a lot of traction, you don't want to take it down. It's the same way somebody has come to, oh, I like to take this, I like this, it makes me high. And then when it starts affecting them negatively, they do not still have that discipline to come out and say, my fans, so this thing that I was talking about, that it was good, that is good, this is what it's doing to me. And then you need to stop.
Yeah.
So you can only see what people decide to show you.
Yeah.
And then you see somebody is looking good, it feels like he's living the vida loca. And then you hear one day he has committed suicide or he has had a drug overdose.
Yeah.
But they never showed that aspect of their life.
Additionally, I think people should not believe everything that they get to see on social media, because what we see sometimes is not the actual real world experience.
Yes.
So you need to be able to tell apart the two and choose what is good for you as a person. Yeah.
I might have a controversial take to that. I believe, especially when you're speaking about music has always been intertwined with the use of psychoactive substances. For instance, in the 1920s, it was marijuana. In the 1970s, 1960s, it was LSD and acid. In the 80s, it was cocaine. Then it went to crack cocaine. Then it went back to marijuana. Now it's a mixture between alcohol and cough syrup and what you can have, what you can buy from the counter.
Yeah.
So when it comes to social media, I believe it's more of an amplification rather than a change in trend of how people perceive the use of drugs.
Oh, it's okay.
It has always been glorified, as Dr. Keleti said.
Yeah.
The negative consequences are never advertised. There's nobody shooting a music video with an addict in the music video. So
maybe deliberately.
Yeah, that has always been the case. The Beatles said LSD helped them write the songs.
Yeah.
It helped them see a different perspective of this world. So it's always the beautiful aspect of using drugs that's usually shared. But the negative consequences are never portrayed in this social and in the music and such.
But now we can see the lyrics. Before we didn't have streaming and graphics that were showing us.
Yeah.
Or
you see brick by.
Yeah.
I built this brick by.
Right, yeah. Brick by brick. Yes, and then also people are more audacious now. There's some things that are posted on social media. I'm like, this should have stayed on your phone, or this should have never been recorded.
Yeah.
Why are you recording yourself doing drugs?
Yeah.
Our forefathers, they did drugs and there was no camera.
Yes.
So, and that's why you do not have, because once you record something and put it out, more people see it. But once you do it in your bedroom, it's just you and maybe just you, In those days, we probably had parents who used to smoke and drink, but the children never knew.
True.
But these days, we have parents who are smoking and drinking and doing drugs and posting on TikTok for views and money.
Yes.
And monetization.
Yes.
So I think it's the audacity now and the fact that people just are farming for engagement, farming for engagement money, and people are just posting everything. In those days, when you go to parties, I'm a millennial, right? We could dance anyhow we love. As in, like, we could literally the reason for going to a club is to dance your heart out. You will dance, you will sweat. Every song had, a dance step, and you will dance and everybody's acting. You have so much fun. But these days, all you see when you go out to parties is people just sitting down, doing a lot of alcohol and drugs, and then just recording.
So nobody has receipts on you?
No, back.
Okay, no. Don't go
Okay. This is the Med Squad podcast where we keep our receipts only and reveal them when necessary. But now we've talked a lot about some of the negatives. We talked about highs and lows and even the progress. But what does help look like? Because when it comes down to it, there is help available. And we'll find out what that looks like when we get back. Welcome back to the Med Squad podcast. You're with me, Yafesi. You're with Dennis on this side. You have Kelechi on this side, and we have Faith. And we're talking about substance use all through to substance addiction. Use, abuse.
Substance use disorder.
It's substance use disorder.
Substance use to substance use disorder.
Or it's just not to addiction.
substance use, some substance use addiction, substance use disorder
Yes.
is the addiction bit.
Oh, that's the addiction bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So now when we get to that point, whatever method got you there, what are the accessible forms of help that are available to someone who is in a state of substance use disorder?
In terms of treatment, we have two measures. We have the pharmacological route and we have the psychodynamic route.
Yes.
Alcohol, you have two ways to deal with it. We have the medication that you can be prescribed for you with the alcohol, but this has to go hand in hand with therapy sessions. Then there's the psychodynamic therapy, where a therapist uses certain measures. It might be CBT, where you use cognitive behavioral therapy. Then you have to access. So there's something Kelechi mentioned earlier on, the underlying issue.
Yeah.
Okay? If you don't treat the underlying issue, the guy will always revert back to the use. So for instance, if I'm using alcohol because of stress, for therapy, the therapy has to identify what the stressor is, deal with the stressor, then deal with the psychoactive substance use. Okay? So, in most cases, we usually do a combination of the two. But especially for the stimulants kind of addiction route, you have to do the psychodynamic because we don't have currently the medication for that. So for the stimulants, we're talking about cocaine, nicotine. So for nicotine, if you're smoking or vaping, they usually do a low dosage kind of thing, which you can use like a nicotine patch. For cocaine, you have to do psychodynamic therapy for you to treat the root cause of where the dependency came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Faith,
Yes.
a question about how. So these treatment options, are they, because the body has developed a sort of dependency and there are some things that have changed. So are we tricking the receptors in the body to think that they're still fine with whatever they're dependent on, and then now gradually get them back to previous state?
It's not more like tricking, but it's more of slowly,
Going back
to what your normal should be. So if it's your dopamine levels that maybe you were dealing with depression and now you're maybe on a lot of alcohol, so it's just slowly going back, and that is why you will see most people who are, trying to explore these options. They'll never walk into a therapy place or a hospital and they'll just be told tomorrow, from next week, we have quit everything. No, it's usually very gradual. You work with this patient that whole journey, and it should be very wholesome in such a way that there's a psychological support. There's the support in terms of, they'll have symptoms that they will get, physical symptoms, that some of them could even be detrimental to them. So with that, you also have to be there to ensure that they're not going back because they cannot stand this withdrawal symptoms that they're actually experiencing. So with that, slowly the body just begins to go back to its new normal. And over a month or so, or even sometimes years, the patient actually now is able to do without the drug, and they're able to just live a normal life.
Okay, so let me just add shortly to that. When it comes to treating addiction, the wrongest way to go about it is to go cold turkey.
Yeah.
You can't just expect someone who is addicted to any substance at all to just stop. I'm just going to stop. The person would definitely go, I'm saying definitely because the person would definitely go back to it, because when you're using substances, the chemicals in your brain changes. So it is your brain telling you that, it's time to take this drug, it's time to do this. And then if you just stop immediately, like she mentioned, there are a lot of withdrawal symptoms that will come. And the withdrawal symptoms are worse than how you feel before you take the medication or the substance. It feels like you're about to die. It feels like you're falling ill. You have muscle pain. You feel like you have malaria. You feel like you're losing your mind. You could start hallucinating. You could get aggressive. You could start having mood swings. So what do you do when you start feeling all those things? Immediately you want to
Get there.
take the so that and then funny enough, you feel better when you do it. So whoever is going through an addiction process or treatment process, whoever is rendering the treatment should counsel them and tell them, when you stop this medication, when you stop this substance, this is how you will feel, and it's okay. What do? We just help you to treat those symptoms that you are experiencing, and just be, you have to give them something to relieve those symptoms. If not, they will go back. And then also, one way of managing addiction is to replace the addiction with something healthier.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to fill a void.
Yes.
So I'm addicted to, if someone is addicted to, let's say, a medication that makes them high, give them something healthier that makes them high. Right or right?
True.
So you have to replace an addiction with a healthier addiction.
Yeah.
If you're always feeling isolated, maybe if you start drinking because you're isolated, or you start drinking or you start taking substances because, you feel down, go to the gym, start exercises or enroll in a sports, and then it replaces, that time that you'd have used to do, to take substance. It just replaces that time and you're doing something, right? Read a book. I mean, you have to get addicted to reading. Get addicted. Yes, you have to get addicted to something else. And so if you are transparent enough to tell what do they call it now? To tell an addict this way, then they're able to understand it better. So it has to be really practical, right? You don't come and throw medical terms and you have to. And then there's another thing you need to tell an addict. Tell them that there is a possibility that they're going to relapse, and that's okay. Yes. That is okay. You're going to relapse.
Remove the
You
stigma.
might relapse, but because if you don't tell an addict that you're trying to treat, that they might relapse. When they relapse, they run away.
Yeah.
They feel like, oh, I'm a failure. This didn't work. But when they know that they can relapse, tell them that it's okay. You have done your best, but then we will start again. So if you are addicted to smoking, for example, a pack of cigarettes a day, tell the person to take they can take 9 cigarettes weekly. They can try 9 cigarettes. Tell them, okay, you're doing well. Let's try 8 cigarettes. Oh, you're doing well. Let's try 5. Oh, you're doing well. Let's try 2. Oh, you're doing well. And before they know it, they see that, I can survive by taking just 1 a day. And before you know it, and then it's like a reward system.
Yeah.
You see that this is working. You see that this is possible.
Yes.
And then one day you realize, I was stressed today and I took more than. So no problem. Let's try again tomorrow. Yeah. So you have to make it human. Remove the guilt, remove the shame, and just make it as practical and as fun and as rewarding as possible. And then let's not forget, if you're treating any substance use or abuse or any addiction of any kind, and you have not taken care of the root cause, then you're just treating just the symptoms, and the problem is just marinating, waiting for you to come back. They're just looking at you, okay, when you're done with all your drama, come back, or waiting for you. So if somebody is getting addicted to substance because of their socioeconomic status, then you have to try to find a way to solve that or to help them to get help. With that. If they're dealing with peer pressure, you have to talk to them about it. If they're dealing with anxiety, depression, and then there are some conditions, there are some mental health conditions that naturally they're just prone to substance abuse. Like I mentioned earlier, ADHD, people who live with anxiety, because when you're using substance, it could be that it's as a result of the substance that you're getting anxious and depressed. Yes. But on the other way around, you might be dealing with anxiety and depression, and then you resort to substance abuse. So conditions like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, which other ones? You're the psychologist. So, like I said, there's a lot of conditions, even some medical conditions like diabetes. You have to take drugs, your medications every day. You have erectile dysfunction, and then you're beginning to take some substances that can help you to, get yourself erect. But in the process, they give you some sort of high, they make you happy, and then you just start using it. For example, people who suffer from sickle cell disorder, right? They're always in pain. So during their pain crisis, they start taking opioids. They were prescribed for their condition. However, it makes them feel good, and then they just start taking it on their own. And sometimes you go for a surgery in the hospital, you're prescribed some strong medications. Even women who went through CS, when they're leaving or after the cesarean section, they could give them tramadol or some strong pain medications. And some of them, they feel like, oh, I like the way I feel. And when they leave, they remember the name of the medication and they go look for it on the streets. So these are things that we should also, consider, that substance use sometimes is not just about pleasure. It's something that drove you into it. And then you got it just for temporary relief, and then one day you feel stressed and then you look for it.
Actually, in most cases, that's
how, yes, mostly in most cases, that's how you don't just wake up and start abusing substance.
We usually use drugs recreationally for most people, because in the world we have like 36 million people who are suffering from substance use disorder. The rest of us are okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean the rest of us have, we look okay. Okay. It doesn't mean like the rest of us haven't used alcohol, we haven't used bang. We have. The difference is, for the 36 million, it's reached a point where they went from the recreational use to using it as a coping mechanism.
I also think that for supporting these people in the management of, coping with the drug abuse and also helping them out of it, we need to be able to tailor the treatment or the support in a very individualized way. So it's not like, something that is cut for everyone, and whatever I can use on you can use on her, and it will work for everyone. So we need to really look at each and every person's need as it is.
Yeah. Okay, so as we wrap up, we want to look at a number of things, but those can come from you in terms of messaging. What message would you have with regard to substance use disorder? I'm getting used to saying that substance use disorder. What final words would you give, or what message, either of hope or encouragement or advice?
In terms of prevention, I would like to focus on the parents who have kids. Bring up really kids who are mentally strong, that are able to say no, that have proper coping mechanisms. And for you as a parent, for you as a teacher, for you as a caregiver, to be able to notice the telltale signs of someone who is struggling with substance use disorder. So if we capture it from an early age, it's much more easier for you to prevent it developing in adolescence or maybe in early adulthood.
What are those telltale signs?
So as a parent, you need to look at certain telltale signs. Who my kids are hanging around, what kind of content are they consuming, which kind of music, is it promoting drug use? And if it's promoting drug use, are you able to have a conversation with your son or your daughter and tell them, yes, they're saying, let's smoke weed, but do you know the consequences of this? Okay. Another thing is for you to really bring them up to be adults that can say no. If someone was to give me a certain drug, I have the ability to say no, to have proper coping mechanisms to know that if this happens, this is how I'll deal with it, rather than using a drug. Okay? Yeah, that's maybe my take.
Okay.
Oh, and to add to that, you need to know if you as a parent, you're predisposed to a genetic disorder. For instance, if you have bipolar or if you have ADHD, something that you can pass on to your kid. Because especially if you have bipolar or even a depressive episode or even schizophrenia, the chances of you, if you engage in maybe partaking of a drug like marijuana, it might lead to other consequences such as psychosis and what have you. So you need to be in a position where, I have this, my child might have this, so I need to have a conversation with them beforehand for them to have this knowledge prior to them being in an environment that predisposes them to engaging in behavior that might lead them to developing substance use disorders.
All right.
Okay, so for me, prevention stems from awareness, okay? If you're not aware of something, you cannot even prevent it. And then it also stems from open conversation, we're talking about sex openly. Let's talk about addiction openly. Let's talk about substance use openly. And then when you're even talking about substance use, it's beyond what we've mentioned earlier. Porn is substance. Social media is substance. Gambling is substance. So let's have this conversation so that when we're talking about substance abuse, there's a way if you tell a child, don't touch this, and the child leaves, okay, don't touch something don't touch this ball, right? And he will leave the ball and go and touch something that looks like a ball. But you didn't tell him not to touch that. So we need to be more open about these conversations and expand them to these things that I have mentioned.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it's a coping mechanism. You might not go use the general substance that we've mentioned, but you might go to porn, you might go to gambling, you might go to all of so yeah, exactly. There are a lot of things you can get addicted to. And also I'd like to say that substance use is not just about what you're using, but how the thing uses you. Because you see that you're no longer in control of yourself. So this is using you. This is telling you when you should wake up. It's telling you what you should be interested in. The substance is telling you what you should spend your money on. So it's more about what the substance is using you for. And then also, so it's not what you're taking. It's what it is taking from you. Yeah. It takes away your friends. It takes away your freedom. It takes away your money. It takes away sometimes a lot of people have built things over time, and then all of a sudden it comes crashing. Yeah. So substance use and abuse is not something that should be talked about lightly. Yes. It is something that has brought down lots of great men and great women. So prevention is awareness, education, re-education, reducing stigma, and then also it is not a spiritual problem. It's something I want to wrap up with very well. It is not a spiritual problem. If someone is using substance, don't pray it away. Yes, you can use faith and spirituality as a soothing balm, but it is never a cure for substance use.
I think for me, it's, as she said, about awareness. It's also more to self-awareness. So as a child is growing up, they need to be in charge of themselves. They need to understand who they are and their place in society, whatever they need to do, their choices. They need to be able to make choices by themselves without you having to watch over them or an adult over them when they're in school or, when they're in uni and all that. So also, I think for people who are already in it, it's okay to be in it and it's possible to get out of it. So, and I think as a society, we need to be able to offer support, reduce the stigma, especially when it's associated with mental disorders. Because most of the time we find that most people who are in it because either they have bipolar disorders, there's the stigma that comes with it. And we see many a times that these people sometimes end up committing suicide, and only after do we get to know that there was an underlying issue. So that's a call to, to action for us to be able to actually offer more support to the ones who are already in it so they can be able to get out of it.
Well, Dr. Faith, Dr. Kelechi, Dr. Dennis, thank you so much for your expertise. And we know, of course, that there's a lot more to this. There's so much more. And you can inbox us if there's an issue that you want us to address directly or specifically. This, of course, is the Med Squad podcast, and you can follow us on all our handles at the Med Squad Pod. And please share this episode. There's information someone else might need who didn't have an opportunity to watch it as you are doing. So help them watch it. We'll see you next time.